Hey guys, welcome. Today's practice is designed a little more for the stretch. I think there are seasons or just times of year where we're doing more outside, whether that's hiking, biking, skiing, whatever it is. And when we come to our mat, we need a little bit more of the stretch, of the balance for that than necessarily coming for the heat and the strength building. So this one will be designed for the lower body. It'll be great to have a strap or something to use for a strap, and then a rolled up blanket or towel for the last thing that we're going to do. And we're going to start right off into the feet. So come to tabletop and then bring your knees together, tuck your toes under, bring the inner edges of your feet together and sit back towards your heels. I usually like to start with hands forward, just to get an idea of how much sensation is going to go on here. And also just reach back, make sure that all your toes are tucked under, especially those little pinky toes. And if this feels like, this is enough sensation right here, which for many of us it is, then stay here. If it feels like, all right, I have a little bit more room to go, then bring your hands up to your thighs. You want to find that place that feels effective, but you're not tensing up against it. Right? Then we get to a place that feels counterproductive. Right? If our goal is to stretch and create length, but we're tensing, then we're not creating that length and that space in the tissue. So effective, you can feel it, right? But also feels like you're not straining against what's happening. Right? Especially sometimes we tend to do that in the neck and the jaw where we don't even realize it. So with each one, just find that right place for you. And bring a little bit more activation here. So press down into your toes and the balls of your feet so that even as we start to ask for some length in the muscle and the tissue, that they're also really supportive. Our stretches don't always have to be passive to get to that end range of motion. Sometimes a little bit more support is actually really beneficial. If you're starting to really feel this in your feet and ankles, great. It can bring up a lot of sensation. If at any point it becomes too much, right, come with hands forward or just come out all together. But this one's great for starting to get into that tissue, the connective tissue that runs from the bottom of our feet all the way up the back line of the body. So you can start to open up all of that with one simple but really effective stretch. Let's see if you can just take a few more moments here and stay strong and supported through feet and toes, but settled and soften with your hips back to your heels. All right, and then come forward again to tabletop. Untuck your toes, press the tops of your feet down, and then bring your hips back to your heels. This time, keep walking your hands back. Lift your knees up and get a little counter stretch across the fronts of your ankles and your shins. We won't stay quite as long here. Just take a couple breaths. And then from there, walk forward again to tabletop. And this time, just take a moment to set up that foundation so your knees are under your hips, your shoulders are over your wrists. And then stretch your right foot back, but keep your toes down to your mat. So you're up on the ball of your foot again. And then you're going to rock back and forth along the ball of the foot, right? So come forward to the toes and then stretch all the way back through your heel. And go slowly enough that you can really feel what's happening throughout the range of motion. Sometimes it just gives us a little bit more information on the places that are holding on and the places that might need a little bit more attention. And then come to where your heel stretches all the way back and give a little bit more strength through your quads. So squeeze your kneecaps up, press the heel all the way back until you feel that stretch through the Achilles, through the back of your calf, and start to create a little more space there. Good. And then lift your foot up and make some good slow circles with your ankle. Again, just think it's nice. The slower you go, well, the body has a chance to respond to what's happening, right? To start to ease into that range of motion or the stretch. Also gives you that feedback and information. Go both directions. It's a great way also to get the fluid moving back in the joints again. Then bend your knee and make those big circles with your hip. See if you can avoid, it's probably going to lean off to the left a little bit. Avoid it coming all the way or all your weight over to the left side. Okay, switch directions here, so take it the other way. And then come back to tabletop. Okay, switch sides. So stretch your left foot back, come up on the ball of your foot. Just rock back and forth. You might have different sensation, different feedback side to side. And the next time you come with heel back, stay there, squeeze a little through your thigh. So again, there's that support, and then stretch your heel all the way back. Okay, keep your leg straight, lift your leg up, and then make some circles with your ankle. Go both directions. You might notice a difference, not only side to side, but one direction in those ankle rolls. Sometimes we have more range of motion one way than the other. Okay, bend your knee and then make a couple big circles with your hip. Switch directions. Range of motion like this, we get the synovial fluid, that fluid that lubricates the joint moving. It can be great just to keep things fluid. And then come back down to tabletop. From here, just take a quick down dog. So press into your hands, stretch your hips up and back. If it feels good, take a slow pedal, bend one knee and then the other. Might notice a little bit more space with some work through the feet and ankles and calves. Okay, from here, step your right foot forward. Bring your left knee down to your mat for a low lunge. And if you wanted a little bit more support, this is a great place for blocks. So if you had those, you can also come up onto your fingertips or even fists for a little bit more height. And just give your legs a little squeeze in towards center. So find the support first, like you're squeezing your front heel towards your back knee. And then just let your hips start to settle forward, get heavy down towards the ground. Go ahead and untuck your back toes if they're not already, and press down through the top of your foot. I find when I do that, it may or may not be the same in your body, you start to get a little bit more activation all the way up the front of the leg, up into the front of the quad and the hip flexors, just where we're trying to bring a little bit more length in here. But just keeping that support of the legs. So again, the stretch isn't just passive. There's some stability with it, some support around the tissue. Okay, from here, straighten your front leg, send your hips back, and then wiggle your right heel forward just a little bit. Keep your heel down, but lift your toes up, so you're flexing your foot. Another great place for blocks. If you want a little bit more support here, you can just walk them back with you. Okay, and so you want to keep your left hip stacked over your left knee in general. And then press down into your right foot, your right heel, and traction, so that movement without movement, traction it back towards your hip. You might feel hamstrings turn on a little bit more there. So again, just the support for the stretch. You can keep knee bent a little bit if it feels like that's a better place to be for amount of sensation. Also, if you tend to be someone who hyperextends, like a lot of range of motion in the knee, and it's pressing kind of at that awkward angle down towards the ground, find a little softness there so it's not too much pressure on the knee. If you've got space for it, you can walk your hands forward, start to fold in. Again, not to push it, find that place that's effective, but you're not straining. And then just let yourself take a couple of breaths. I think that support of the muscle can also be really good for the nervous system. And sometimes we come to that edge and the body wants to stop and protect itself and hang on. If we give it that little bit of support, once we start to get to that end range of motion, if the body feels like, okay, I can go here. I'm not going to strain or pull. I have support as I move into the stretch. Okay, if you walked your hands forward, walk them back. Bend your front knee again. This time, take your right foot out a little bit wider and bring both hands inside. And then turn your right toes out at an angle. And that just might be an inch, that might be a couple inches, wherever it feels like the right place for your hip. And then a couple options here. One is to simply stay right here. Squeeze your front heel towards your back knee and then let your hips get heavy. All right, chances are you're already feeling a little something through the front of the hip and the quad. If it feels like you have a little bit more room to go here, you can bend your back leg. And then you can either stay like this, that might increase it a little bit, or take a big circle around with your right hand, reach back for your left foot. Right, just stages, we have a little different range of motion. Keep the inner leg strong and hugging together, but then again, just let the hips get heavy and settle down. Right, and then last option here is you can stay up on your left hand, or you can come down onto your forearm. That's probably going to significantly increase the amount of sensation. So find the right place in your body, hang out there. The nice thing I think about shorter, simple practices like this, you can come back to it over and over and really start to notice that change over time. Okay, if you have a hold of the foot, slowly, try not to let it slingshot back, release, unwind, come back up onto your hands and stretch back, down dog. And again, you can take a slow pedal, one knee and then the other. Okay, from here, step your left foot forward. Bring your right knee down to your mat. Good, so keep your hands down. You get the support of the hands again, looking for the stretch more so than having to build a bunch more heat and strength. Right, but do go ahead and just give that little squeeze of the inner legs. We're looking for that more for support than necessarily strength building. With that support, then you can let the hips start to settle forward. It might not actually move a lot, but just almost like you're surrendering down to the weight of gravity. Untuck your right toes if they're not already. If you hate that, keep them curled under, just playing with different sensation, and then press down into the top of your foot. You can keep your outer left hip drawing slightly back. And then just a couple big breaths, let things start to settle and create space. And from here, send your hips back, straighten your front leg. Bring your blocks with you if you want that support. You might wiggle your left heel forward a little bit so that your hips stay stacked over your right knee. Flex your left foot so that your heel's down, but your toes are pointing up towards the ceiling. And as you press down into your heel, traction it back. See if you can feel the hamstrings turn on a little bit more. You can stay fairly upright. You can walk your hands forward. Just go slowly, listen to where the right place is, that end range of motion on this side. And again, just watch where the knee is. If you want a little release through the hamstrings, take a little bend in the knee. Or if it feels like you're hyperextending and pressing the knee down towards your mat, see if you can find a little softness. And then come forward again. We'll come back to hamstrings, I promise. They can almost always use a little love. Take your left foot out a little bit wider. Bring both hands inside your front foot. And then just turn your left toes out. It might be about an inch, it might be a couple inches. Let's listen to what feels like the right place in your hip. Squeeze your front heel towards your back knee. So that's support of your legs. And then you can let the pelvis settle down a little more. Right, choices, lots of choices here for this one. Stay right here or bend your right leg. Stay there or reach your left hand around. And sometimes if it's really close, you can back your hips out a little bit, bend the knee, reach back. Sometimes that little unplug helps you to get the foot. Right, then just make sure you re-engage inner legs, then let the hips start to settle forward. And draw your heel in and let the hips get heavy. Can stay here up on your right hand or come down onto your right forearm. Again, that might give you more sensation. Sometimes like we try and then realize like, that's not the right place. And just give yourself a couple breaths. Right? Support through the legs, but enough softness just to create some space, some stretch, some length through the front of the thigh. And then release without slingshotting the leg. Unwind one more time. Step back, down dog. Pedal out your legs. Maybe each time there's just a little bit more space. And then bring your knees down to your mat. Grab your strap. Come all the way down onto your back. And then once you get there, bring your right knee into your chest and bring your strap around the ball of your foot. You can keep your left leg bent or you can stretch it long. It really just depends on, well, most likely range of motion in the front of the hip and the quad. And then just walk your hands up your strap enough so that your arms are straight. Sometimes it just takes a lot of effort if the arms are bent and you're straining to hold the leg. So you can just use the weight of your arms. Now, your knee might be a little bent. Your leg might be way far away from your body. It's fine, right? Wherever that range of motion is for you today. But once you're there, flex your feet. And again, just so there's some support. And use the weight of your hands and arms. Let them just drop back. So it's creating that little bit of traction of the strap against your foot. And then press up through your right heel. And press out even through your left heel. Get a little length there while it's there on the ground. And then just see where that end range of motion is. You might be able to move your toes just slightly closer towards the back of your mat. Sometimes that feels like they're just crawling a little millimeter by millimeter. And the other little adjustment here is you can make is to feel like you're pressing the front of your thigh, your quadricep, back towards your hamstrings, towards the back of your thigh. It might just feel like there's a little bit more support in the leg there. These post-activity stretches can also just be great for less soreness the next day. We prevent the muscles from shortening back up, keep blood flow moving, to keep everything flushed out. Okay, take both ends of the strap into your right hand. Bring your left hand to the front of your left hip, and then let your leg come out to the right. And that might just be a few inches. It might be further out to the side. Sometimes you can bend your elbow, get the back of your arm to the mat. That's a nice place for support. If you come all the way down, if you have that range of motion, great. But see where your left hip is. If that starts to lift way up, back out a little. Favor keeping your left hip down. You can press out through your right heel, especially your right inner heel to get that inner leg stretch, and stay anchored and rooted through your left leg. Not a place that we tend to get enough stretch usually unless we're doing yoga is the inner seam of the leg. Bring it all the way back up to center. Release your strap. Bend your knee into your chest. And just take a twist. Bring your right leg across to the left and right arm out to the side. And stay active through your left leg. Your right knee may or may not come to the ground. That's fine. We're just starting to create a little stretch through the hips and low back. Sometimes we can get some good work. We're out hiking, biking, skiing, all of our different activities. And come on, back to center. Switch sides, so bring your left leg in and bring your strap to the ball of your foot. Right leg bent or straight. And leg might be a little further away. It might be bent, wherever your range of motion is. Walk your hands up your strap enough so that your arms are straight. And then find that support. So flex your feet. Press up through your left heel and out through your right if it's extended. And press the front of your thigh in towards the back of the thigh. Maybe just a little bit more support there. And just heavy through your arms. In a lot of ways, yoga is a great balance for our different activities. We're often getting strength and length together. Right? But there's definitely times, days where we're craving more of one than the other. So we use the practice to find the balance that we need. It doesn't always have to be the same kind of practice day to day. Both ends of the strap into your left hand, right hand to your hip, and then bring your left leg out to the side. A little bit more, wherever that stopping point is. And same, just check in with your right hip if that's lifting way up. Then back your left leg out a little bit so that your right hip stays grounded. Keep your legs active. And press out through your left inner heel, a little bit more length on the inseam of the leg. Use your strap, bring your leg back to center, release. Bring your knee in towards your chest, and then bring your left leg across your body to the right to twist. Bring your left arm out to the side. Left knee may or may not come to the ground. Let's move it in that direction. Keep your legs active. And roll your outer left hip away from your shoulder. You want to create that range of motion through the low back, the spine without forcing it. Just keeping movement in all directions going, blood flow moving. Come on back to center. Bend both knees and then just roll to your side for a moment and press yourself up. Okay, grab your blanket or your towel roll. Place it down the back side of your mat. And then you're going to come to snuggle your low back up against that. You can have your blocks nearby if you have them. You may want them. And then come to lie down so that that blanket or towel roll is really just along your spine. You can bend your knees to start with. So hips are still down on the ground, spine along. It's nice if you can keep your head supported. And then bring your arms out to the side. And just depending on range of motion, your shoulders, that might be more along your side. That might be like a cactus shape. You do just want to keep your hands and your forearms supported so they're not floating out in the air, so that we're not asking the front of the chest to work. And then two options for your legs. If you want a little bit more space in your low back, keep your knees bent, take your feet wide, and let your knees rest together in constructive rest pose. If you would like a little bit more in your hips, take the soles of your feet together, knees out wide, and butterfly, maybe with blocks underneath. And if you don't need the blocks, set them to the side. So while we are focused primarily on the lower body here, this last one just to give a little bit of space through the chest and shoulders for balance. A lot of the things that we do, even if we're hiking or biking, are still going to give us some forward lean with the front body, or we might be carrying a backpack or something on the shoulders that can just lead to a little tension there. So for just a couple moments here, let the front body be open. Let the shoulders drop back. And just let your body relax. I'm going to leave you here. You can spend another few breaths or another 10 minutes, whatever feels good for you today. Thanks for practicing. Hope it helped.